It was December 17th, 2017, in Serrinha, Bahia. A rain cloud watched over the first hours of the end. The name of the young protagonist, Daiane Reis Mota, 25 years old, full of expectation and awaiting her daughter's birth on December 18th. Her partner, Adilson Prado Lima, also 25. That Saturday began with promises of joy. A nutrition student, about to complete 9 months of pregnancy, working at a small local clinic. He, a mechanic shop employee, kept a simple routine. That day, they both went out shopping in what seemed like an ordinary gesture, but only he returned 33 minutes after 2 p.m. That's where the mystery begins, confusing the community amid preparations for the big day. Since November, Daiane had been planning her daughter's birth, anxious to reunite with her family. She was well loved. Her cousin Michelle described her like a sister, mentioning her dedication to her first child from a previous relationship. Adilson, apparently a loving partner, seemed helpful. He assisted in the search when Daiane did not return home. He initially appeared consistent. That night, family members went to streets and hospitals. He stayed with them, even offered money to a friend to help get information, painting the portrait of a distressed man. But there was a slip. Daiane's cell phone was still at home. Her cousin tracked it with a locator, and the paternal tone changed. Tension spread. A few hours later, the first cracks in his narrative began to appear. Contradictions started pouring out, and the scene began to change. Did his behavior convince you or raise doubts? Share your theory. The next day, the police intensified the search. Security cameras showed that Adilson's vehicle returned alone to the village at 2:33 p.m. that Saturday. 2 days before the baby was due, 2 lives were about to change without knowing the shock that was approaching. The mystery's tension grew. Adilson was carrying something no one expected. The use of tracking devices and electronic systems began to change the game. That helpful man, who had been calling everyone for news, was showing serious gaps in his story. Police questioned him and searched for evidence. The atmosphere, which had been tense and emotional, started to take on tones of suspicion. Monday dawned without answers. At 6:30 in the morning, a cowboy passing along a dirt road in a rural area of Serrinha noticed something unusual near a fence. As he got closer, he confirmed the worst. The young pregnant woman, missing for 2 days, had been left there. The scene was devastating. Authorities were called, and the news spread like lightning. The city came to a halt. The shock spread through social media and local radio stations. Daiane, who was just hours away from giving birth, had now become the center of an intense and delicate investigation. What had seemed like a disappearance had taken on even darker contours. At that same moment, Adilson was taken to the police station to give another statement. With evidence and footage in hand, investigators began to cross-check times and routes. According to the cameras, his car had passed through a remote area near the site where Daiane was found. His story about the young woman's last moments no longer held up. He claimed they had split up to go shopping but could not say exactly where she had gone, with no records, no witnesses, and the cell phone tracker showing a different route. His situation began to grow more complicated. During his testimony, under pressure, Adilson broke down. In an unexpected twist, he confessed everything. He said that the two of them argued inside the car. The reason: he could not accept the birth of the child. Daiane wanted to register the baby with only her last name. He, on the other hand, insisted that the baby carry his name. Tensions hoje, and in a moment of impulse, the tragedy happened. His account weighed heavily on everyone present. Friends, relatives, and even the police were in shock. A man who until then had seemed merely anguished now revealed a story no one could have imagined. With the confession in hand, investigators dug deeper into the details. Adilson revealed that during the argument inside the vehicle, he lost emotional control. He drove down a dirt road to a remote place, far from the urban areas. His version was marked by pauses, hesitations, and attempts to justify the injustice. He claimed he had not planned anything, that everything had been unthinkable, the consequence of a quick argument. However, the facts pointed in another direction. He had taken Daiane to an isolated spot on a rainy day with little traffic passing by. Police sought premeditation where he claimed there had only been impulse. Meanwhile, the city was in collective mourning. Social media filled with tributes. Daiane was described as a calm woman, dedicated to her studies and family. She had been a fighter since childhood. Born and raised in Serrinha, she was the only daughter of a humble woman who had always dreamed of seeing her graduate. She worked as a dental assistant and dreamed of opening her own nutrition clinic. The baby she was expecting was a reason for celebration. The family had carefully and lovingly prepared the baby's room. Her mother, in an emotional testimony, said that Daiane had already separated the baby clothes to take to the maternity ward on Sunday. The shock grew when medical tests confirmed that the baby was healthy and close to being born. The story that began with the disappearance became a symbol of outrage throughout Bahia. The public outcry was so great that neighbors and local residents held a silent march through the city streets, carrying banners with Dion's name and the phrase, "Justice for 2 interrupted lives." Faced with the social impact of the case, the police sped up the investigation. More details began to emerge. As they dug deeper into the couple's history, investigators found troubling aspects. Adilson and Dion lived together, but their relationship was unstable. Close family members reported that the two had already separated several times. On one of those occasions, she even returned to her mother's house, saying she was not being treated with respect. Despite this, Dion decided to give her daughter's father another chance, trying to maintain a family structure. However, the reconciliation came with new tensions. The main issue seemed to be control. Adilson showed jealousy and discomfort with her independence. Close friends revealed that in recent days, Dion had seen hints. One of them said she had confided that she was thinking about leaving again, but wanted to wait until after the baby was born. That same friend told the police that Dion was afraid Adilson wouldn't accept being apart from the child. She told me, "He doesn't want to let me decide the baby's name on my own." It seemed like a small thing, but she was nervous, the witness reported. The atmosphere between the two had already been unstable, but no one imagined it could reach this point. The police began investigating whether he acted alone or had his route. The lack of cameras on the dirt road and the exact timing between when she was last seen and when he returned raised suspicions. Additionally, questions arose about whether his actions had been premeditated, but the most surprising detail came a few days later when Adilson's cell phone was examined. Forensic experts found recent searches on the device. One particular search term caught their attention: how to erase location traces. The search had been made on the eve of the disappearance. That completely changed the direction of the investigation. If you're following along so far, don't forget to leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe for more true stories like this one. Does this phone search change everything? Or do you think it could still be hiding something bigger? Share your theory below. With the forensic results in hand, investigators no longer had any doubt that the case involved a greater level of premeditation than they had initially thought. Adilson's search on his phone, one day before Dion's disappearance, indicated he was worried about not leaving any trace. Archived messages were also found in messaging apps in which he argued with his partner about their daughter's name, making it clear he was unhappy with Diana's decision to register the child using only her last name. The messages had a harsh tone and, at times, were aggressive. This new scenario reinforced the hypothesis that Adilson had not merely acted on impulses as he claimed, but had actually been nurturing an idea for days. And the final straw was supposedly the confirmation, on Saturday morning, that the child would not carry his last name. This discovery made investigators even more suspicious, and the prosecution decided to include this evidence in the case that was rapidly building against him. His confession, which at first seemed to settle everything, now became just another piece of a deeper and darker story. During the investigation, Dion's mother was interviewed several times. In one of her statements, which was quite moving, she explained that her daughter had always wanted to protect the family and never fully revealed the problems she faced in the relationship. She didn't want to worry us. She said everything was fine, that she was just tired, she said. This statement reinforced the profile of a young woman who, even in the face of difficulties, held on to the hope that things would get better. However, the community of Serrinha began to demand justice even more forcefully. Posters were put up on the streets, and a wave of mobilization took over the town. The commotion spread beyond the limits of the municipality and gained attention throughout the state of Bahia, with the case being reported by major news outlets. After the national outcry, the Bahia State Public Prosecutor's Office formally charged Adilson Prado Lima. The indictment was accepted by the court based on technical evidence: his confession, messages found on his cell phone, and statements from family and friends that revealed a troubled relationship. The defense tried to argue emotional imbalance and a momentary impulse, but the investigation pointed in the opposite direction. The timing, the method, and even internet searches suggested a premeditated act. The case files showed a story carried out with chillingly detailed execution. The trial was scheduled for the following year. The jury court in Serrinha drew attention from news outlets across the state. Community members gathered outside the courthouse holding banners with the names of Dion and the baby she was expecting. The session lasted 4 hours. During the witness statements, the prosecution highlighted signs of controlling behavior in the relationship and actions that showed clear premeditation. The defense tried to argue that he had not planned anything, but his cell phone search history and the route he took that afternoon were crucial. Adilson was convicted for a series of actions that, according to the court, demonstrated his direct responsibility for what happened to Daiane. The verdict was met with tears and silence. Daiane's mother, in an interview outside the courthouse, said, "Nothing will bring back my daughter and my granddaughter, but now I can sleep a little more peacefully knowing the truth has come out." Even after the trial, Daiane's case continued to be remembered as a symbol of the importance of reporting abusive behavior and paying attention to the silent signs that are often ignored out of fear or shame. Schools and institutions in the region began promoting campaigns about healthy relationships. Inspired by her story, Daiane's name started being used in local social projects that support women in vulnerable situations. After being convicted, Adilson Prado Lima was transferred to a prison facility in Bahia, where he is serving his sentence under a closed regime. Since then, little official information has been released about his daily life in prison. What is known is that he did not receive frequent visits after the trial. Most of his family members completely distanced themselves, both out of shame and because of the brutality of the events. The community, in turn, remains marked by what happened. Serrinha, which was once a peaceful and welcoming town, now carries in its collective memory a story that still echoes in hushed conversations on street corners and in school hallways. The house where Daiane lived with Adilson was emptied shortly after the incident. The furniture was removed by the young woman's family, who never set foot in the place again. The memory of her daughter and granddaughter is kept alive by her mother, who saved the items from the trousseau that had been so lovingly prepared. According to close friends, she was never the same again. In quiet interviews, she made it clear that she lives to keep her daughter's memory alive. On dates such as Mother's Day and birthdays, neighbors report that she usually places flowers and lights candles in the corner of the living room where Daiane used to sit and talk. In 2019, 2 years after the crime, a local NGO held an event honoring women whose lives had been cut short by similar situations. Daiane's name was the most remembered, and the plaque bearing her name and that of her daughter was installed in a square in Serrinha as a symbol of resistance and a fight for justice. Since then, her case has been studied in local schools as an example and warning about relationships showing signs of control, isolation, and emotional abuse. The case has not been forgotten. On the contrary, it remains both a wound and a lesson, a memory and a milestone. Even today, posts still appear on social media with her photo, accompanied by phrases such as she just wanted to be a mother or she had plans and someone took them away from her. People who never knew her are moved by the story, because it could have happened to anyone. Today, the case of Daiane Reis Mota lives on not only in her family's memories, but also in discussions about protecting women and preventing abusive relationships in Brazil. After the case gained the national attention, social movements pressured local authorities to strengthen public policies aimed at the safety of pregnant women, especially those in vulnerable, intimate relationships. Although Adilson Prado Lima was convicted, many still question whether justice was fully served, since the future of Daiane and the baby she was expecting can never be recovered. Over the past few years, Brazilian law has come to take a stricter stance on cases involving aggravating factors such as pregnancy, emotional dependence, and a history of control or psychological violence. Daiane's name is frequently mentioned in lectures and events on the subject, especially by activists in Bahia. In 2021, a public school teacher in the city developed a school project called Flowers for Daiane, aimed at raising teenagers' awareness about the signs of unbalanced relationships and how to seek help. In 2023, the NGO responsible for the tribute in the public square secured funding for a women's support center in Serrinha, which is now called the Daiane Shelter House. The space offers psychological counseling, legal guidance, and workshops for women in situations of risk. It's as if her memory, silent yet steadfast, is still protecting other lives. Adilson remains in prison, and so far, there are no records of appeals accepted by the court. His name has become synonymous with a warning. That story, which began with a young woman full of dreams and a future almost within reach, ended with a town marked forever. Daiane's absence, the void left by her unborn daughter, and the grief that still hangs over her family are remembered year after year. Time has passed, but the question still hangs in the air. What drives someone to destroy the life of the person they claim to love? And did everything really come to light? Or are there parts of this story we will never know? Leave your theory in the comments. If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so that Daiane's story is never forgotten